pretty interesting interview with Brad Parscale on Fox News that aired yesterday. Parscale, of course, being the disgraced former Trump campaign manager who was fired, rightfully so, for misappropriating a lot of resources, burning hundreds of millions of dollars in cash in places they probably didn't need to be burned, but actually had some insightful analysis around why exactly he think that Trump lost the election. Let's take a listen.
I think that goes to one thing. And I think it was the decision on COVID to go for opening the economy versus public empathy. And I think a young family with a young child who were scared to take them back to school, wanted to see an empathetic president and an empathetic Republican Party. And I think that, and I said this multiple times, and he chose a different path. And I don't think anything's wrong with this. I love him. But like, we had a difference on this. I thought we should have public empathy. I think people were scared. I walked around people and watched people walk around me. Not like 2 years ago, and they just don't walk next to me because I'm Brad Parscale, but walk around me because I got a mask on now, and they just don't want to get COVID. I could see how waitresses stand a little farther from the table. People are scared. And I think if he would have been publicly empathetic, he would have won by a landslide then. I think he could have leaned into it instead of run away from it.
I think he's right, Ryan. I largely do. Look, and I said this at the time after the election results. COVID did not end up mattering as much as I thought that it would. Look, 70-something million people still voted for Trump, despite all of this. A lot of people still ranked the economy higher than COVID. But there's still a lot of people who cared a lot about COVID. Joe Biden won 81 million votes in this election. And, Trump's margin of victory across Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and all that is only like 70-something thousand votes. If you go and you look at some of these tight things, things swing in a different direction than even in an even tighter way than it was in 2016, and he wins. He completely wins the election. I think this is what did him in. I really do. I'm not saying that it's necessarily the only thing. I think, for example, if he'd done a round of stimulus checks and still kept his current posture, he still would have won the election. But Parscale is right. In that kind of like what could have been, it was such an easy election to win if he wanted to.
Yeah. As awful as the pandemic was for people around the globe, it was a gift to a lot of political leaders who instantly recognized it as a moment where they could be seen as leaders. Look at Cuomo. He didn't do much of anything to make the situation actually better for people in New York, but he won over people who even have hated him for years, just by being empathetic and seeming competent and speaking to people's fears authentically every night on television. Brad Parscale's insight here is such a basic one, but it's a profound one. He saw the fear in people's eyes throughout the country. And if you recognize that people have legitimate and real fears about their own health and safety, then all you have to do is respond to those and you start to be seen as a leader. And then all of your pushing for reopening the economy, getting people back in school is coupled with this sense of responsibility for people's well-being. And it leaves Democrats with very little room to operate.
I completely agree. I remember, actually, Parscale, again, to his credit, one of the only good things that he was pushing for appears to be this. And he was pressing Trump. He wanted to sell Trump masks, Patriot masks, right? You can see a world where Trump continues to have rallies and everybody's wearing a Trump mask. Much earlier than a lot of that stuff actually began to happen. And then you see a world where I think, again, that Trump wins re-election. I really believe this is one of the most easily winnable elections in modern history, really, for anybody who wanted it, and that neither Biden or Trump really showed up with a promising message, which is why it was so close, why I think it's going to be close again in 2024, regardless of who runs, although I do think Trump is probably going to run again. So anyway, it's interesting always to see these former campaign people speak out. He's not exactly in good graces with Trump or anything, but like I said, this is somebody who was on the inside and apparently was pushing it, which again shows, Ryan, go ahead.
No, and the last dynamic I'd point out is that, by saying it was going to go away by April or May, he really owns it. And by downplaying it, what he also did is he created an inability to capitalize on progress being made on a vaccine. Because if your public posture is that this isn't actually that big of a deal, then you can't really claim credit or you can't celebrate a vaccine that's a cure or a panacea for something that you say isn't that big of a problem. So if he had stressed what a significant problem this was early on, then every time that Pfizer or Moderna or somebody else came out with positive developments when it came to the vaccine, he could have celebrated that and said, look, we're just months away from the end of this. And when this ends, you're going to get that roaring economy that you love back. So, keep wearing your masks, keep behaving responsibly, keep social distancing so that we can open the economy, so that we can end this, and so that we can get back to where we were before. And that feels like such a winning message. But if you say that, well, this thing's not actually a problem, then you're not only dismissing everybody's fears, but then you can't take credit for the progress that you're making.
No, you're exactly right. And, like I said, it shows that, again, it was a conscious choice by Trump in order to go in this direction. And I think he was hoodwinked by these libertarians like Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow into adopting this, because that meant what? It means you don't have to spend more money. Now, I'm not giving him agency or whatever. I'm not taking away his agency. He's the one who chose to do it. And I think it was monstrous and stupid, really, whenever it comes to how people turned out. But, there are a lot of people who are responsible for this strategy, and they should never be taken seriously again. But don't worry, there's still icons in the Republican Party. So there we go. We'll have more Rising for everybody right after this.